Hey, this is Rich over at TVP Live with another quick tips tutorials brought to you by Photoshop Elements Custom Tutorials Group. And let's jump right in with today's poster. Want us to know how to make an outline of this frog and separate the layers. Now I'm assuming the layers that they wanted to separate would be maybe this hand, this arm and hand, and this leg to be separate from the rest of the body, because that looks like the only parts that are in front of other body parts. So what we want to do first is make sure that the frog is high contrast enough to be able to cut it out from the background. So I'm going to go ahead and take this picture and I'm going to unlock it by clicking here, and I'm going to make it higher contrast by going to Enhance, Lighting, Brightness, Contrast, and I'll just make it a little bit more contrasty and bring down the brightness a little bit, and that'll sharpen up the edges so it's easier for us to cut out the foreground from the background. And once I hit OK, now you can see it's higher contrast. So now what we want to do is let's cut out the background and then create a template so that we can make an outline of the whole frog. So I'm going to go ahead and come over to the Magic tool and look down here and see what the tolerance is set to. It's set to 30%, which is a pretty good number because the edges here are pretty sharp. So if I click anywhere amongst the white, you can see what happens. It grabs everything but the frog. So if I hit delete, it just deleted the background. That's exactly what we want to happen. So before we continue, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a copy of this layer. I'm going to come up here, right click, and I'm going to hit duplicate layer. And that'll make an exact duplicate underneath. I'm going to turn that layer off. And we're going to use that layer a little bit later. But let's go back to our original top layer that's highlighted here. And now let's reverse what we're doing so that we can get an outline of the frog. How do we do that? Let's go ahead and right click here and select inverse, and that's going to select the frog only and leave the outside completely untouched. Now if I hit delete, it deletes the frog, but look at this, the marching ants leaves an image of the outline of the whole frog. Let's go ahead and fill that in. Let's say with the color white. We hit the color palette here and we could change whatever color we want with the left mouse button. I'll just drag it up here to the upper left to choose white, hit OK, come over here to the paint bucket, and if I just drop it here with the left mouse button, it'll paint in the whole image as a silhouette. I'm going to hit Control D to deselect, and now we got our silhouette selected here. Now what we can do is add an outline by right clicking, hit Edit Layer Style. That'll give us a new box over here. What we want to do is add a stroke. So I'm going to open up the stroke box, and right now it's set to black. We'll leave that color black. Let's say this is set to 1 point. Let's change that to like 7 points, and that looks pretty good. Now we're going to change the position of that outline from the outside to the center. That's going to retain a lot of the little details if we do that. So I'm going to click this and hit from outside to center, and that makes the outline on the center of the edge, and now we got these nicer details, and we'll hit OK. And now what's the fun part is to get rid of the white, and will leave us nothing but the outline. How do we do that? With the magic tool over here, it's set to 30. We'll leave it at 30. Just click in here and it selects everything. Actually, it didn't select everything. If you can look really close, that line is in the middle. It's going to get rid of some of the outline. Why is that happening? Is because we're selecting an image with an effect. I'm going to undo that. With an effect. How do we know? Look up here and it says FX. So it's an effect and it doesn't know what to grab. So what I'm going to do is simplify this image, which will merge the white with the black into one image. I'll right click up here and I'll simplify it. That allows us to go ahead and grab just the white and not the black. Once again with the magic tool, I'll click in here again, and now we can see when I zoom in, the marching ants is selecting just the white and nothing else. So when I hit delete, boom, and then hit Control D to deselect, now we got us a really nice outline of our original subject. I can go ahead and toggle the bottom layer on and off, and you'll see what happens. Look at that. Now if I toggle the top layer, which is just the outline, look what happens. That's our outline. Now what we can do is create some tracing so that we can get some of the details from the inside. How do we do that? Is we make sure that we're on that top layer. Let's go ahead and grab the brush tool and come down here. Make sure that it is a hard brush. The top end are hard brushes here if you're under default brushes. If you scroll down, you're going to get into soft brushes. Let's come up here and find that same font size of 7, and there isn't. There's only 5, then it jumps up to 9. So I'll go ahead and click 5. If I click here, I can change that 5 up to a 7 point, and that should match the original outline that we have. What I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in right here, and now I can, with the brush, draw in what's missing in the detail. And now I can just draw in the details that were missing. That's looking pretty good. That's going to be one layer, the hand, and we might want to add the arm like that. And then we can come down here and do the same thing with this arm here and trace this like that. Doesn't have to be perfect because the audience won't know what the original looked like. And then this leg here, but we can just kind of go ahead and do something like this. And then come up here, we want to get the facial features. We got an eyeball over here that we can kind of draw in. We've got another eyeball here. And you don't see it because I'm drawing black over black, but we'll see it afterwards. Now there's a couple of nose holes here. I'm not sure where they are, so I'm going to just draw one right there and draw one like there. And then the mouth, and I'm going to come in like this. And that's looking pretty good. Now when I zoom out, what I can do is turn off the background image, and there we go. We got a nice tracing of the whole frog. So now I can either just save this and use this image as its own single full layer, or I can separate layers by making copies and cutting each portion out. So what I'm going to do that. So that bottom layer, this layer, we don't really need it anymore. I can right click here and hit delete layer. And now we got just a single whole layer. I'm going to go ahead and right click and duplicate it, and then turn off the bottom layer and just work on the top layer. So let's start out with this hand and arm. I'm going to delete everything else beyond it. I can take the polygon tool and come down here, and I can choose lasso, which is freehand, or polygon lasso, which is, it works by left clicking a series of lines and then you close the end. I can try that by isolating just what I want. I'll start here and I'll click like this and click, click. I just want to click out everything else but that hand and maybe the arm too. And I'll just click over here. I can go beyond it. When I get to the end here, I'll double click and you'll see the marching ants. That's isolating everything that we don't want. I can right click and select inverse. I'm going to zoom out and hit delete, and it deleted everything else that I didn't want. Now I can zoom in if I made a little bit of mistake here. I can take the eraser and come down here, make sure it's a hard brush, and let's say I can try something like a 19 point, and that's pretty big. So I'll just click, click like that and get rid of portions that I don't want. So now we got the hand and the arm. I'm going to turn that off. I'm going to turn that back layer back on. I'll make another copy of it. Right click, duplicate layer, and I'll turn that bottom layer off, work on this middle layer, and now let's go ahead and cut out this front arm here. So what we do is, once again with the polygon tool, and I'm going to cut out the rest of the image. I don't have to cut on it, just as long as it's within the portion that I need. It's only important right here where it attaches to other portions of the image right there. Boom, boom. Double click. I can right click, select inverse, and as soon as I hit delete, boom, there we go. We got just an arm. So now we got a hand on the top layer and just an arm on the middle layer. I'll turn those both off. Come back to the bottom layer again. I'll right click. I'm going to duplicate the layer and then still work on this third layer. I'll turn off the bottom layer. Now this third layer, let's keep this right rear foot here and do exactly the same thing with the polygon tool. This time I'm going to freehand by using the lasso tool. Now this is, you just have to be careful because I have to hold the left mouse button and carefully draw this out. See, I just kind of cut in and made a little bit of a mistake, but it's okay. It's not that important. Let's go like that, come over here and let go of the mouse button, right click, select inverse, hit delete, and there we go. We got that portion there. So now we got the right rear leg, the right front paw and hand, and this hand. And then we have at the very last the background. And those are basically our different layers. And if you really wanted, you could color these in. I'll go back to the bottom layer. And let's go ahead and come down to the color wheel. I'll hit green over here, but I'm going to pick something kind of dark right down here like that. I'll hit OK. Grab the paint bucket tool, come in here and left click, and I colored in that portion. Now let's go ahead and take these front legs and just change the green a little bit brighter. I'm going to go like this, right around there. I'll hit OK, but make sure before I color that in that I pick that layer. So I'll turn off that bottom layer, and that's going to be not that one, it's this one right here. And I color that in. I can turn that back layer back on, and you can see it's a slightly different color, which is good. Turn that back layer back off. Now I want this layer. Is it this one? Yes, it is. So I choose that layer and click in here. Now the hand, and I'll click in here for the hand, but make sure I choose the hand, click in here. I'm going to make this much brighter, so I'll take the green here and I'll come up here like this and click right in there. When I turn that background back on, now we got all the different layers. If we wanted to color the mouth, make sure that that mouth is on the back layer. I can come up here and let's go ahead and pick something more in the reds, something like that. I'll hit the paint bucket and paint that in. And let's go ahead and make the eyes, I don't know, something like kind of a blue-green, and hit OK and paint those eyes in. And that's all there is to it. Well, that's it for this tutorial. Hey, don't forget to like and subscribe. And this is Rich calling it quits, saying over and out.